One of the things I often get asked when people see my wildlife photography photos is how you get so close to the creature that you're taking an image of. Well, some people also say maybe it's just because of the size of your lens. Well, let's find out how I do it. Right, so one of the things you'll also have to consider when getting close to wildlife is that all wild subjects have what I would term and what other people term as a circle of fear. And what that means is that you may have noticed this yourself, that there may be a wild animal that you see quite a lot, or a deer, and you get within a certain distance and then it runs off. And that's a similar distance every time. So if you're just walking along and you see it in front of you, it'll let you get so close and then it'll be off. That is the same for all wildlife. One of the things to realise as well is that that circle of fear can change for the same animal depending where it is. So think of it like this: if you're in a deer park where deer are used to hundreds of people coming through, their circle of fear may be a lot closer. They'll let you get a lot closer to them than they would, say, if you were doing red deer up in the Scottish Highlands, where they're completely wild. They fear humans and they'll be off a lot earlier. So you have to be a lot more clandestine about how you get close to them. Whereas in a deer park, you know, that circles come really tight in and they'll let you get a lot closer. Right, so I think before we start looking at methods of getting close to wildlife, the most important thing really is to define what we mean by close. Because depending on the equipment you're using, the lens that you're using, and also depending on the animal that you're trying to get a picture of, it's going to be a fundamentally different distance that you need to be away from that animal. So if you're taking a picture of something like a red deer, you know, that's a huge animal, so you're not going to need to be as close to it as you are to, say, to get a picture of a blue tit or a wren or a gold crest, something like that. What we'll do first, I'm going to set my camera up and I'm going to do a few little tests just to show you what that distance looks like, and to give us an idea of how close we need to get those shots. Right, so what I've done on this woodland ride, I've set up some objects along it at different distances, and they're all different sizes. So the one at the furthest point is something probably about the size of a roe deer. The one next closest is probably something the size of a muntjac deer, and the one next up is the size of a brown hare, and the one closest to me is the size of a sparrow. So the different objects representing those animals. All these are at 400mm on this lens. So if we look at the first one, the furthest away, representing a roe deer, that is actually at 32 meters. Now if we come a little bit closer to 15 meters, the object representing the muntjac deer, again 15 meters away, so we're a lot closer because it's a much smaller deer. And then if we get even closer, just get that focused on there. This is one of my other bits of camouflage. It's about the same size as a brown hare. That is 8 meters away. So again, we're getting closer and closer and closer. And finally, the smallest object on here, what I've done is set up my DJI microphone case, as you can see there, and that is about 3.5 meters away. So again, you've got to be really close for that. But what does that mean? Well, as we talked about this circle of fear, most of these animals will not tolerate you being that close to them at that distance. They'll be away. They might cross the ride in front of you at that distance, but they're not going to hang around. So if we want to get that close to take pictures, what have we got to do? We've got to use other methods. We've got to use camouflage and other skills that we might have. So let's take a look at that now. Now, I said right at the start of this video that the size of the lens makes an obvious difference about how close you need to be to your subject, but there are other things in play as well, which I don't want to get into too much detail in this video because it'll make it a insufferably long video. But as a summary, the camera that you're using also makes a difference, because that will have a sensor in it, and the type of sensor in there will make a difference. So as an example, my Nikon Z8 has a 40+ megapixel sensor in there, which means it's full frame, 40-odd megapixel sensor. I'm quite happy to crop my images by up to 50% because I know that I'm still going to have a 20+ megapixel image, and the quality is going to be good enough for the sort of applications that I might want to use it for, whether I'm printing or whatever. Which means in reality that if my roe deer is only half the size of the frame, I can crop that image all the way around to make it full frame size without having to get any closer. If you've got a crop sensor camera, that is already doing that crop for you. So in reality, a 400mm lens will be more like a 600mm lens on some crop sensor cameras, which means that it's already doing that crop for you. You'll look as if you're closer than you are, but in reality what it also means is a lot of these sensors on crop sensor bodies are around the 20 to 25 megapixel, which means that you're not going to be able to crop as aggressively as I can. So there's swings and roundabouts for both. But let's get back onto more how we're getting close to this wildlife. So how can we get close to wildlife? What are the practical ways? Well, the first one I would say is camouflage. And that can be as simple as something like what I'm wearing today, colours that blend in more with my environment than say they would if I was wearing a bright yellow jacket, for instance. If animals like us, if I'm walking down a woodland ride and somebody's in front of me and they've got a bright yellow jacket or coming towards me, I'll see them a lot earlier than I will if they're wearing stuff like this and they're blending more in with the trees. You know, if they're wearing bright yellow or bright red, I'll see them a mile away. As soon as they're big enough for my eyes to pick up, I will notice them. But if you're wearing colours like this that blend in with the stuff around you, you can generally get closer. Now, as well as clothing, there's other things that you can use. There's more extreme clothing like 3D camo clothing, or things like ghillie suits. One of which you see in here, this is a 3D suit, and as you can see, you know, if I'm on the edge of a woodland or something, or if I'm laid down, it's going to be really difficult for anything to tell that I'm there. It's going to get really close. It's probably going to be its sense of smell. Even if I've got the wind in the right direction, it'll probably smell me first before it sees me with all this get up on. But this is quite extreme. You can also use things like blankets. This is a really good one. It's from Tragapan, but it's really lightweight, and it's something that I carry with me all the time because it's light enough to carry, and it's going to give me some protection. It's going to give me some level of camouflage, and I can use it in quite a number of different ways. So it's got a hole in it here that slips over the lens, but it's also can come around the tripod legs and create like a little bit of a dome around me. I can actually lie underneath it and just use it like a camouflage blanket and lie underneath it with the lens. So it's multiple uses and very, very lightweight, which means that I can carry it with me all the time. Now, taking it up a step, we move on to things like hides. So hides generally, for me, I don't use them as often as some people do, but if I've got a project where I'm spending a lot of time trying to get pictures of an animal in a certain area, it may be that I'll either make a hide, so I'll make a hide out of natural materials and just cover myself over with it, or use one of these commercially available hides that are really, really good, got holes in them to put your lens through, and you can train it on that area and just sit quiet, and obviously you're covered completely then. And these come in different camouflage patterns depending on the area you're in. So you can get some that are more woodland, you can get some more that are sort of light grassland, snow type ones if you're in a snowy environment, and they really help a lot. And finally, probably the other one that a lot of people don't recognise is actually using your car. So there are some species, and I've used this quite a lot up in Derbyshire if I've been doing things like red grouse. You can often be driving along and pull into a lay-by, and there'll be a red grouse on a wall or on a bank, and you can literally shoot from your car. And because you're in a car, you're on a road, and these red grouse are used to seeing these cars come through, they're a lot more tolerant. As soon as I get out the car, it'll fly off. But because I'm in the car, it's like a metal hide, if you like, and they're used to it. And this is one of the things that a lot of people don't understand is, if you're in an area, and this is what I say about deer parks as well, where animals are used to people, then that circle of fear is a lot smaller and you can get closer in that way. A car's exactly the same. if you're in an area where a lot of cars come through, they're used to people pulling off in a certain area, and you've got animals there, they'll generally be more tolerant of you than they would if you were just getting out the car or just walking into that area. So far we've looked at, I would say, probably all the easy stuff, the stuff that you can buy commercially to make yourself more unobtrusive, to get yourself covered over and blending in more with the environment. But for me, there's a far bigger thing that you need to do, and this is the one that takes effort, persistence and time, and that is just learning your fieldcraft. So I think I know quite a lot about wild animals and birds, but if I'm going to photograph something that I've never photographed before, I'm hitting the books, I'm hitting the internet, I'm taking in as much knowledge as I can about that subject before I even go, so that I know what its habits are, I know what it eats, I know the environment it likes, I know when it likes to be there, I know when it's more prevalent in that area. Is there a certain breeding season where it congregates in a certain area? I'm taking all that in to give myself the best chance when I actually go and start employing all the things like this, to make sure that I'm there at the right time and that I've got the best chance of getting those images. And really that's just effort and time. And other than that, the other thing as well is you've got to be prepared for disappointment, because you can do all these things, you can do all this research, you can cover yourself up, you can camouflage yourself, you can get the right wind direction, you can get the sun in the right direction, and it still doesn't work. And that's the nature of wildlife photography. But that persistence will pay off, and that's what you need to work on. Fieldcraft, persistence, and it should all come together. So is there a shortcut to this? Is there a shortcut so that you can get superb images straight away? Well, not really. I think for me, it's a case of what you need to do is bring all the things I've talked about together into a mixture, and for each individual animal or bird that you're trying to take images of, you'll need to put different bits in to that mixture to get the right recipe. So sometimes you'll need more camouflage, sometimes you won't need any camouflage, sometimes you'll need more fieldcraft skills, sometimes you'll need to research an animal more because it's rare and it's only in certain areas at certain times, and there might be certain times of the year when it's more visible, when maybe breeding season. So you've got to bring all that together in the right recipe depending on the creature that you're after, and you will get success. And that will just come with patience, with time, and as you do it more and more, you'll get better and better at it. Now I really hope you've enjoyed this video this week, and if you have, please drop me a like. Also, if you want to see more videos on camouflage and how I get closer to animals, then again, drop me a comment below this video and I'll see what I can do for you. Anyway, as I say, I hope you've enjoyed it. I'll see you next time for another one.